What's up, guys? This is Coach PJ, and we're going to go through some of the biggest myths and misconceptions that there are around strength training for BJJ. So I've dealt with BJJ fighters for a long time, and these things just constantly come up over and over and over. So I'm going to defunk all these myths and misconceptions and tell you guys the truth about training for BJJ. So the number one thing I hear all the time is, I just need more conditioning and more BJJ. I don't need strength, all these other things. I just more conditioning, more BJJ. So I'm going to talk about how that applies to different fighters of different levels. But I drew up a little diagram here, and a pretty well-known strength coach coined the term filling buckets. I got that from Mike Boyle. So we talk about all these different qualities that you can have as their own individual bucket. So if we're filling up each individual bucket, what most guys think is we need more endurance, conditioning, endurance, conditioning, endurance. But what happens is, once this bucket is full, as we start doing more, it's just overflowing. And all that extra endurance and conditioning is overflowing. It's probably actually making me worse, and I can't get better. All these other buckets, however, are pretty much empty. So if I keep just trying to fill this bucket up, I'm going to have all these other buckets that aren't full, which I need in order to be a well-rounded athlete. So my job when an athlete comes to me is to assess which one of these buckets are already full and which ones are the least full, and then which ones are going to correlate best to your sport. To develop a well-rounded athlete, we have to have, most of these buckets have to have something in them. Some can be more full than others, but if I get stuck and all I do is this, or all I do is this, or all I do is this, that means I'm going to be weak in a lot of other areas. And for jiu-jitsu, being such a dynamic sport, we need all of these different things at different points. So it's going to be a lot bigger bang for your buck if you've already filled this bucket. And most of the guys I work with, they can already roll 10-minute rounds with a minute rest for 2 straight hours. If you can do that, your endurance bucket is full. That means you're fine. When you go to compete, the maximum you're going to be doing is 10, maybe 15-minute fights with 30 minutes or an hour in between. So you're good on endurance. So let's work on some other things that are going to help you have a more well-rounded game. Just filling this bucket would be like only going in and training arm bars. You could be the best at arm bars, but if you don't know how to do any of the other moves, you're going to get exposed pretty quickly. So when it comes to training, the reason I wrote strength so big here is strength is the underlying premise upon which all of these other athletic qualities are built. Without a foundation of strength, you cannot develop any of these other systems, any of the other training parameters well. You can get a little bit here, a little bit there, but an underlying premise of strength, this is the foundation upon which it was built. So again, to tie that to jiu-jitsu, this is like I came in and did arm bars and triangles, and I'm trying all these flying triangles, but I haven't even gone through basic white belt stuff. Eventually, I'm going to get exposed because my flying triangle is just not going to be very good or very usable if I haven't built up my foundational skills. So people get lost in this word strength, thinking that this means lifting as much weight as possible. That's not what strength means. Strength is just a term for the actual ability of your muscles to produce force, to control and move your limbs. So we have to make sure we have a well-rounded foundation of strength in order to develop the rest of these qualities at a high level. Otherwise, I'm going to be constantly hitting a glass ceiling for developing my power or my endurance or my speed and agility if I don't have that foundation of strength. Strength is also going to help you prevent injuries. Every sport out there in the world, there's tons and tons of research on how much strength can reduce the incidence of injury. And having weaknesses and imbalances is the #1 predictor that you're going to get hurt. So at the bare minimum, having a good foundation of strength is going to help keep you on the mat training jiu-jitsu for longer and being able to do what you do longer. The last piece is, I just need to train more BJJ. You know, I don't need to do all this extra stuff. It's just more time on the mats. And I completely agree with that. There is no substitute for time on the mats, specifically for a novice fighter. If you're new to BJJ, you're a white belt, a blue belt, more time on the mats is going to be great, and that's going to help develop your jiu-jitsu skills. And you're fighting other blue belts, the guy who's spending more time on the mat is probably going to win. However, if I wait until I become a black belt to start focusing on all this stuff, When I get into the gym and I start deciding, hey, now my technique has reached a black belt level and I'm trying to compete with other black belts, so I got to get stronger and faster and build my endurance. When you get in the gym, you're a white belt in this area. And now we got to try to build you up from a white belt and even those skills out with your black belt level jiu-jitsu skills. So if you can start off, and it's only gonna take you about 2 hours a week. So it was 168 hours in a week. At a certain point, you just can't train more BJJ. You gotta get into the gym, start building some balanced strength and endurance and coordination and power, and building that foundation early so that as you peak and you get to be a better, higher level athlete, you can really start to use this stuff at the highest levels. For black belts and elite level competitors, at a certain point, you get to the point where your technical skills are at the elite level. Now it's just about sharpening your tools and continuously sharpening all those skills. And most of those matches, and you guys know, those fights are going to be decided by the guy who is able to execute those high level skills stronger, faster, and for longer. And most of the time it becomes the guy who's more fatigued, who makes a mistake, the other guy capitalizes, and he's able to win. So if you haven't developed this well-rounded stuff and all you're relying on is your technique, but you fatigue after 2.5 minutes and the other guy's able to execute his moves faster or stronger or for longer, that guy's gonna make less mistakes and that guy's gonna be the one who wins.